and you found this sort of roundabout way that flights the Secret Service was taking is somehow financially benefiting President Trump himself. So if you could you break down that flow chart a little bit for us?
Of course. So, like all presidential candidates, the Secret Service reimburses the campaign for the airfare when it accompanies a candidate who gets Secret Service coverage. So we've seen this happen. This is George W. Bush, McCain, Obama, Clinton, all of that. What's different here is that Trump's campaign is renting the airplane from Trump's personal business. So what you have is the Secret Service paying. It's been about $13 million so far that they have paid the campaign. The campaign, in turn, has paid Trump's business $18 million. So, in this case, you're not just having the money go to a third-party vendor, you're having the money from the Secret Service, from the taxpayers, going to the president's business. Trump was by and far the highest. Now, of course, we do have to adjust for inflation, but second place went to Hillary Clinton, who was at $8.8 million. And that was also a clear bump up from third place, which would have been 4.1 to Barack Obama. So Donald Trump there is far and away the one who has received the most in payments from the Secret Service for his campaign. Part of the issue we're dealing with here is that he has been a groundbreaking president in terms of holding on to his business empire and even having a business empire while coming into the White House. So there's not much of a precedent to go on for somebody who has this many different business ventures and this much money tied up into all those different business ventures. So, there's really not much of a precedent there. The courts didn't rule one way or another on, whether his having these businesses and accepting money from foreign governments violated the Emoluments Clause, barring, the president from receiving foreign gifts. So really, it's just he can do whatever he wants by and large.
And you and I talk at length over President Trump profiting from his perch in the White House. Is this a surprise then? I'm assuming no, that he was profiting this way from his campaign.
No, we've looked at in the past. We looked at this last year. The figure was closer to about $10 million then. Figured it was time to take another look now that last campaign cycle is finished up. So yeah, not a surprise. I mean, this is a guy who sold bars of soap that have the White House wrapper on them. He currently sells the presidential gold note on his website. This weekend, his TrumpStore.com was putting out a blast of its Memorial Day sale. He was on the tarmac being interviewed in New Jersey, being asked about Vladimir Putin in Ukraine. And if you noticed, he was wearing a white Trump hat, Make America Great Again hat. That hat is for sale on his website.
And you've reported that this isn't the only way that President Trump has benefited financially from the Secret Service over the past 9 years. Dive a little deeper into how else he's benefited from them.
Yeah, so Democrats on the House Oversight Committee put out a report, I believe it was earlier this year, that showed $1.4 million in payments from the Secret Service to Donald Trump's properties while he was president. So essentially, they were paying Trump's businesses while they were there to protect him. Eric Trump had famously said that they charge, but it's just their costs, and that is not true. You can go back and we've obtained some records from FOIA showing that the per diem is well above what the per cost rate is for a hotel room. So, the report mentioned that this is just a small little drop that they've been able to find. They think the actual payments are much, much higher than this, but this is just what they were able to get from the Secret Service.
For a lot of different businesses, when you're traveling for work, you have to adhere to certain guidelines depending on what level you're at. Does the Secret Service have any travel guidelines themselves?
Yeah, they're supposed to keep it somewhat reasonable, but unlike other government agencies, they don't have to follow just the GSA guidelines there. They need to pay what they need to pay to protect the president. So, they do have a little bit more leeway there than other government agencies.
And I know you looked at, for reference, what the Secret Service paid former President Biden. What was that number looking like?
So, yeah, this was really interesting. This came out years ago that Joe Biden was actually charging the Secret Service to rent a cottage on his property in Wilmington, Delaware. So that had been known. But what hadn't been known was that they stopped in 2017. We submitted a FOIA request. We got the data through October 2023. And those payments did stop in 2017. So the total that he charged them was $172,000. And that was largely rent payments, monthly rent payments for the cottage going back to 2011. So yes, he was charging the Secret Service for property that he owned, but the amount was obviously much, much smaller than what Donald Trump has charged the Secret